I was definitely this.
And here we go. Click that, and click that. And that allows me to say we're live. Triple T number 83. Woo! And can you believe it is already August 2023? Like, what the? August 1st, 2023. I want to thank everybody for joining in, and I'll introduce myself for those of you that have not figured out who I am yet. My name is TJ Zebel. I call myself a professional problem solver, which means every week I also have to follow that up with, no, I don't know everything. I just have a unique way of asking lots of questions and helping people find their way to the solutions that they're looking for. And if I can't help you solve it, I have lots of people in my tribe that we can reach out to and make sure that you get whatever solutions you're looking for. I also have a website, thetswb.com, which I just updated today. So check it out. Give me your comments, and if you can think of ways to improve it, I am always open ears. My ego is pretty solid. I never claim to be perfect, although there are parts of me that are still under construction. I also offer a free 30-minute consultation. That is your opportunity to spend time with me for 30 minutes, asking me any questions, seeing if there's any way that I can help you with any situations you're dealing with. I've helped people with depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD. I do corporate coaching. Because I've found out that those CEOs, COOs, CFOs, all those OOOs we have in the business world, so far, all the ones I've dealt with are human, which means they also have some of the human challenges that we all do. What else? So I work with professional athletes, well, athletes of any level, for performance enhancement. It's not about who or how athletic you are. The mental game is also a huge portion of it. And YouTube etiquette, as always, share with as many people as possible, invite as many people as possible. Click on the subscribe, ring the bell, leave comments, hit the like, share it with people. I think that's about it. Ramble. I know. I'm feeling a tad off today. Down here in Dallas, Texas, for the last couple of weeks, it has been 100 and help me Jesus degrees out. And that has dried everything out, and there is dust and pollens and stuff, and you live inside as much as possible in air conditioning, and we're cooling our house down to a frigid 80 degrees because when you go outside, coming back into 80 degrees feels very comfortably coolish. I have to admit, it makes it a little bit of a challenge to go out and about to some of the restaurants in the area who are trying to turn the entire, well, it feels like you could, hang beef out in the restaurant because they've got it down to like 68. And then you go outside and it's only a 400 and, no, it's only a 40-degree temperature difference, which smacks you right here. But it helps you forget about all the food you ate and the money you just paid, because you just want to get into your car, which is only 30 degrees hotter than it is outside, so you can get home and run into the house. Well, that's enough of that. On to you guys, my favorite peeps, my tribe. Anybody got anything they want to share from the last 7 days? Any epiphanies, ahas? Actually, it's been even more than 7 days since we've seen the beautiful face of Miss Holly. So glad she's back.
I'll share a couple of things. So one thing that has really come out for me is, and it's funny what TJ was talking about the temperature. I was thinking it's the exact same principle, but it's just how interesting it is that so many of our things are relative to the people around us. And so one thing is anything you're going through, remember there's probably someone out there who's not only going through what you're going through, but going through something, that same thing at a much higher degree. And then just kind of the same principle, but I was just thinking about some of the things I struggle with. And I had a dream that I was at the same level of competency, but I was the best person at that task in the world by a huge margin. And it's funny how it wasn't my degree of competency that was holding me back. It was how I compared my degree of competency to everybody around me. Because all of a sudden everybody was hiring me to do something that when I'm in the real world is something that I'm ashamed to even try to do. And so anyway, I just thought it was very interesting, just like the temperature. It's not necessarily the absolute temperature that you're focusing on. It's the temperature, how it compares to everything else. I think the same thing is true of many challenges as well. So yeah, those are my big takeaways.
Exactly. That's part of, that's right in alignment with my thermostat protocol, whether it be income thermostat or profession thermostat or all the above. We set these mental limits to what we think we are capable of, both high and low. And especially when it's regarding income, when you think about what we're going through right now, when the temperature of the house gets too high, the AC kicks on, cools it down. Well, when certain people start making too much money or looks like they're going to be successful, that mental thermostat kicks in and cools off progress and kicks us down. And just in the way of the opposite, when funds start getting too low, just like in the wintertime, Minnesota, where I grew up, even here in Texas, when the temps get low, furnace kicks on, that fire kicks on and brings the temp back up to what's acceptable. If we get too low in the fundage, our thermostat kicks in, puts fire under our heat, and we got to get out and start making some coin. Because some of us are still addicted to living indoors and having food to eat. And that takes monies. But that's not our topics tonight. So before we get to the topics, anybody else got anything they want to share from the last time I got to see your beautiful faces?
I was thinking a lot about perception and how, especially with Dolores Cannon, she says everybody's playing the role that they're actors. They're playing the role that they want to be playing. And I sat down today and I was actually in a skilled nursing facility, and my patient goes, he got passed a bingo card and he goes, "What do you think? Is it a good card?" And his perception, just the way that he said it, and it just kept resonating deeper. And I know it's like such a generic thing to like pass somebody a bingo card. And he's like, "Do you think it's a good thing?" And did he perceive it as a good thing? And how that set off a ripple effect of how he was going to experience the next several minutes of his life based on Was it a good card or not? Was it a winner or not? And I just kept seeing things, how people were perceiving their day, how people were perceiving the things that were going on. And it was so wild because I felt like I was getting pulled into like a completely different world, and I was seeing all these other matrices that were kind of circling around these people. And I'm just trying to observe it and not conflict with it, and just really take it all in and realize that it really is a perception that people are traveling through. And they really don't know much of it unless you keep leveling up your perception. And it's not just 1 level, 2 level, 3 level. It is an ongoing, evolving, unfolding of how you're perceiving this world. And it was just really, really, really interesting to experience that today.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, because squirrels just delivered a lot. I mean, bingo, what a great place. I mean, other than the fact that it's the easiest way to get a large number of older people to swear at the same time. Bingo! But watching them as that happens, and watching them as they leave the place.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that didn't win anything had a wonderful time.
Yeah.
I got close once. It was awesome. Versus the ones going, oh, frickin' lost again. Hate this place. Oh, it stresses me out. I needed one number, and then frickin' Lucky Joe, who wins all the time. Yeah, why does Lucky Joe win all the time?
Perceive himself
Partially
as lucky.
because he probably totally believes in his name. He is Lucky Joe. And because he believes that, every card is a winner.
Very much so. Very much so. I knew people that went on vacation, and they were talking about, one person was talking about how great the vacation was, and the other person was talking about how bad it was. And they were both perceived, they both went on a vacation, but they both had a completely different experience. And it's wild to think that it's simply a choice to look at what's going right for me. What can I be happy about? And I know I said this like when I was talking about when I was over in Switzerland. Am I yelling at every single rock, branch, and thing that's tripping me up? Or am I looking at the scenery? And I keep having to remind myself, like, where are your thoughts, Laura? Where are your thoughts? Go back to make sure you're tending to your thoughts.
Very much so. Thank you. The amount of people that I've seen have the exact same experience physically, and two completely different experiences mentally. Just humans having human experience.
And truly, it's wild.
Yeah. Goes right back to that saying that I love. You can be completely angry that rose bushes have thorns, or you can be totally grateful that thorn bushes have roses. It's the same bush.
I've never heard that one. That's a good one.
Yeah. Every time I see roses now, especially when you're trying to take care of them, you're like, but you got the pretty, you're so lucky you got the pretty flowers. Hibiscus. Or no, not hibiscus. I just called it Satan plant. We had it in Cali, and it grew.
Not familiar.
Yeah, it grew into a hedge that literally was about 10 foot tall, about 10 feet wide. And the older the vine got, the harder the thorns got. And when they died, the thorns turned into titanium. And for those of you that are typing, no, not actual titanium. But they did have the ability to go through the soles of shoes. That's how hard they were. And the problem was they had pretty flowers on them, or there would be very little reason to have them. But we're not here to talk about roses and Satan plant and all the above. Elijah, how was your week?
My week was great, man.
What's that?
My week was great.
Good answer. I noticed that a couple of people seem to be having some challenges. I heard there's going to be some challenges with internet connectivity. So if you're seeing people pop in and out, welcome to technology.
You know, it works when you expect it to work, right?
Yeah. There are days that I love technology, and then there's the rest of the year. But
So I've been on a bit of a reading kick. I've gone through more books in the last 2 weeks than I have in probably the past year.
cool.
And I seem to be getting into that spiritual, esoteric, woo-woo kind of territory, where science can no longer explain what's going on, or it can do its best to try, but you know, like it's the kind of stuff that, you know, if you're a believer, then it's fine, but if you're not, then nothing I tell you is going to convince you otherwise.
Yep.
What are you reading, Elijah?
I'm reading books, Lenore. I'm reading books from the 1920s and the 1930s of ancient wisdoms.
Very awesome.
Versus hieroglyphics.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Cave walls.
I'm reading books that you know, they weren't always easy for me to start reading in the first place, because some of them wax a little bit religious, and some of them kind of, you know, they talk about the Christ in you and things like that, right? And I had to go through this whole, like, okay, I want to separate that, and I'm gonna just see it for, like, you know, if I put on my quantum physics hat and start calling it the quantum field and all that stuff, and sort of trying to realize, sort of, you know, I realized that I'm close to 100 years in the future from when this was written, and that a lot's happened since then. And, you know, not that I'm not denying religion, you know, please, you know, also stop typing, as TJ would say. I'm not denying religion. Okay. I'm just saying that, you know, it's strange that all the roads are kind of leading to the same castle. Whether you go down the quantum physics road, whether you go down a religious road, whether you go down, and it doesn't matter which religious road, you know, you could go down Christianity, you could go down Islam, you could go down Judaism, you could go down Buddhism, you could do Taoism, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really matter. Somehow they all have a common thread, right? And that's where I'm like, well, surely not everybody's wrong. You know what I mean? Surely
so accurate.
Surely it can't be like everybody is wrong, right? So, you know, so I've been reading and kind of taking notes, and I even tried a manifestation technique, and, you know, got a positive, very strong, undeniable result within like 90 seconds.
That's super cool.
Of speaking what I wanted. And so that kind of, you know, piqued my interest a bit more. And then I was just further and further down this rabbit hole.
That's so
unlike
cool.
Everybody, I'm unlike many people, I'm really not scared of stuff I can't prove or stuff that
Okay.
is beyond, like what I don't know. Like the woo-woo stuff that people are like, yeah, that's just weird, and that's just wrong, or that's just made up, or that's just fantasy or fiction or
Okay.
fairy tale.
You're not
Like
scared of that? Or
I'm
that doesn't bother you?
I have the ability to kind of approach it with an open mind, and I'm more like, okay, well, now's your chance, convince me,
Yep.
No.
and then I will even test it, um and test it with all I know, as someone who's had many internal experiences as a hypnotist and led other people, like many other people, through internal experiences and had weird shit happen already. Like,
Yeah.
someone asked for a regression and we did a regression, and then she went into a past life, and until then I didn't believe in past lives, but now I do, right? Or someone saying that there's someone else in this room with us, and I'm like, no, there's not, it's just you and me. And then a book goes flying off the shelf and hits the floor, and I'm like, oh shit, maybe there's something else here. So things
Fudge.
like that I have experienced firsthand, and
Yeah.
so I'm a little bit open to weird shit happening, right?
That is super awesome.
Only difference is this time, I'm going looking for it.
Okay.
Yep.
I like what you said when you said, they can't all be wrong.
Yeah, they can't. I mean, they can't all be wrong.
They're all saying the same thing. They can't all be saying this big lie.
Take like the major sort of 6 religions, right?
Yeah.
If you take like and like quantum physics, if you take like Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Taoism, Hindu, Buddhist, and like quantum physics, you take like these 7 approaches, and you find the one point where all 7 intersect, and then study that. Yeah. I mean, where there's smoke, there has to be fire, right? Surely. So, I don't know. I'm not saying there's something. I'm not saying there's nothing. I'm just saying, I'm having fun finding out more.
Yes.
Very cool.
So far, it's very encouraging.
That's awesome.
On Sunday, we did a class on Zoom about faith, not religious faith. Again, faith in oneself. Faith being the ability to blindly believe and release all fear and take a step forward, even though you have no evidence that something's going to work. And we talked about that for a little while. And then we got into manifesting and how faith can help with that and stuff. And it was a really good class. It was a small class, just a handful of people, but it was really good. It was the smaller group allowed me to go a little bit more into people's questions and answer them more deeply. So that was cool. And yeah, so in general, TJ, I had a really good week.
Good answer. And I like the stuff that you brought up, because I've got, Lord knows I've gone through enough of it myself. Like a lot of the things that I believe now, obviously, I couldn't have explained and wouldn't have believed 10 years ago. But the more you're around it, the more you experience, the more things you see that you experience, you're just like, wow. Okay, well, that's a new one. Guess I can't write that one off anymore. So, welcome to our world. But if I'm going to be able to get at least 2 of these accomplished, as usual, we should probably dive into the topics of the week, which are rule of thirds, what's in your cup, and food, life and beliefs. Rule of thirds. This one came out of an Instagram short that I stumbled across, or somebody sent me. I get so many of them now, I don't know if I found them or if it doesn't matter. The universe sent it to me somehow, and it was about an Olympic athlete whose coach said, how'd you do today? Oh, I did terrible. It sucked. And he goes, awesome. And she's like, what? He goes, awesome. I'm glad you had a terrible day at it because of the rule of thirds. And she's like, what? And the explanation was, you have to have a balance in life, and rule of thirds is a really good rule of thumb. A third of your life should be awesome stuff. Third of life should be mediocre, and a third of life should be less, we're just going to call it less than optimal. And the explanation behind it was, if everything is awesome, chances are you are really not challenging yourself. You're probably so far in the comfort zone that you don't really know the difference between awesome and mediocre. Too much mediocre can really become so lackadaisical that life no longer seems to have, just wake up every morning, make the donuts, go to sleep, production work. And if your life is completely terrible, you may need, it may be environmental, it may be belief systems. We were talking before, a little bit earlier before, about how two people can have the exact same experience and yet have two entirely different takeaways. Best vacation ever! Worst vacation ever! Weren't you guys like in the same room? Yep. And you have to bring some of that into context as well. It doesn't, I've always told my clients, every flower garden, no matter how well tended, will have at least a couple of weeds at some point. And in the rule of thirds, the person that always has the terrible life, guess what they're going to see? That one weed. Oh my God. Everywhere. Look at it. Oh, it's got thorns. When I grab onto it, look what it does to my hand. It makes me bleed. Why'd you grab it? Because it's a weed. And you smack them on the head and you make them stand up and make them look around. And all of a sudden they're like, where'd all these flowers come from? They've been here the whole time. But what about this weed? It's a weed. What do you want to do with it? Well, what do you mean, what do I want to do with it? Look what it's doing to my hand. Well, what do you think would happen if you let it go? You mean I can let it go? Well, that person's not hanging on to weeds. Yeah, but they're lucky. They walked in next to that pretty flower. They're just lucky. Well, what if they just walked in and decided they were going to go to a pretty flower? Mindset. When they walked in, they said, I'm going to find the prettiest flower in the place. And they saw the weed and went, oh, so it's normal. We have a weed. That happens. Weeds happen. The reason I bring this up is, how do we deal with the other 2/3? I've seen some people that when things are going awesome, I wonder how long this is going to last before my life goes back to like, well, that's a great outlook, homeboy. It'll probably last, a lot shorter than it could. For the ones that are in the lower third. How long have you had this cold? Well, next week it'll be 4 weeks. So you've already decided you're going to hang on to it for another week because and so we have to pay attention to not only where we are, but especially our tribe. And I'll always remind people, tribe doesn't necessarily mean that they get immediately written in because you grew up with them or because they're family. One of the ahas and epiphanies I had from one of my wait to date protocol clients was, when dating, so many people let everybody start off as a king or queen and prove that they are not there. Whereas if you're looking for a person or a job, what would happen if you did the inverse? What if you just went, prove to me you're not a 0. Prove to me you're not a 2. Okay, you've made it up to a 5. That's progress. Oh, you made it up to a 7. Now we're getting closer. You're at a 10. Oh, look at you, hit a jack. Oh, now you're back to a 10. The king or queen should be that highest level reserved for the highest level. Too many people put them on the pedestal and go, they're good looking. They gave me a compliment. They're perfect. 2 weeks later, where's your king? Jerk. Urgh. And then they go through a month of depression because they made this beautiful scene. I think we talked a little bit about it last time. They put a beautiful costume on them, found out it didn't fit. Suck bummage. Brr. And that should also be put into rule of thirds. You can have a third of the people that you're just like, I think you can be on the outskirts of the kingdom. I will still associate with you as little as possible. I won't be mean. I won't be vindictive. But I don't think you need to be anywhere near the city walls. And a third of them can gain access to the city walls, inside or outside, but they're that close. And a third can have the potential to make it inside the castle. And understanding that they're dealing with the rule of thirds in the same way that we are, it's much easier to observe them. How do they react on a bad day? How do they react on a good day? It's like we were talking about bingo. You know, the easiest way to get vast majority of older people to swear simultaneously. Bingo! But you watch them as they're exiting the bingo parlor. Some of them that didn't win anything had the most amazing time. I had a blast. I almost won one. I only needed 7 more numbers. And the other people coming out grumbling, didn't win a frickin' cheat that waste of time and money. I could have sat home and watched reruns of paint drying. Same experience, kind of. Same amount of time spent in the same environment. Two entirely different mindsets. And the same thing can be applied to past programming. How many of those events do people hang on to that reaction? And pretty soon it becomes a mindset program. That's why I might bump right into food, we'll see, but people think that I'm absolutely crazy because I am an adventurous foodie. They're like, oh, you actually ate that? Oh my God. I tried it one time when I was 3 and it was terrible. Oh my gosh, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Rather eat a dry piece of toast. You tried it once when you were 3? And so I love doing the surprise special. If it's edible, I'll try it. Because there are 2 things that can mess it up. Bad cooks, bad ingredients. And I might be adding a third, a bad mindset. How many people will decide that it's bad before they even taste it, before they'll even try it? Doesn't matter how good it is, or the fact that thousands of people across the planet love it. In their mind, they can't understand how somebody could eat that. Well, the last time you tried it, what was wrong with it? Well, I wouldn't try it. Really? So you haven't even tried it, and you just know that it's bad. I call them cement heads. Their minds all mixed up and permanently set. Can't get even into it with a chisel. Even a jackhammer would break on some of their mindsets. I know. I've had to help them with that. And we'll roll right into the next topic of the week. What's in your cup? Somebody sent this to me and it was amazing. About somebody was sitting at their computer and having a little sip of coffee, and somebody bumped into them. And coffee splattered all over their computer. Ah, what happened? Oh, somebody hit me and spilled coffee all over. No, what happened was you had your cup full of coffee, and that's what got on your computer. What was your cup full? If your cup was empty, nothing, it wouldn't have mattered if somebody bumped you. But if your cup is empty, how's that? What if we replaced coffee with love, happiness, or the inverse, anger, fear, anxiety? Whatever is in your cup when you get jostled, when life shakes you up a bit, that's what's going to spill out. And you can watch people. Life takes a dump, somebody backs into their car. What's in their cup? If love and understanding is what their cup is full of, they're the ones that'll get out and go, are you okay? Yes, my car is smashed and totaled, but are you okay? That's somebody whose cup is full of love, understanding, and gratitude. The person whose car got a scratch, you actually have to get down. You have to look at the right angle. But they're like, you totaled my car, I'm gonna burn your house down. What's their cup full of? And with that, we have to self-test ourselves. Check some of our reactions, our emotional reactions. And that I'm not saying it's easy. I'm human too. I know. Go figure. I know some of you are in shock. It's okay. But I've had to pay attention to some of my reactions to stuff. Why am I reacting that way? What's in my cup? What have I been filling it up with lately, and what do I need more of? And it also helps me realize who I want to be around and who I don't want to be around. Because you'll have certain people that will pour things into your cup. Gossip, that's a nasty, nasty ingredient in a cup. Lies, limiting beliefs, all sorts of things that can be put into your cup from external sources. Media, entertainment, another way to fill your cup with the wrong stuff. There are a couple of movies I know I can't watch. One of them is Chicago. And if you're from Chicago, it's not because of the city. Just stop typing. I think that's the name of it. Anyhow, I think it's about a mob guy or whatever. But when I watch it, I get so worked up and so furious that it takes me The last time I watched it, I shut it down halfway through the movie because I already felt my blood pressure was up to here and I just wanted to go out and do evil things. Well, when you see that in your cup, time to clean it out, put something better in. And I'm going to roll through this pretty quick. Anybody got any comments, ahas, epiphanies that they'd like to share on that before we try to squeeze in the last topic? Nope.
I like there were a couple of things, a couple of squirrels that ran across from mine, but especially when I had said earlier about raising your awareness and constantly leveling up, to literally be aware of what you're watching on TV, to be aware of what you're reading, to be aware of those people that you're around. And one of the things that was really powerful, and I know you've said it many times, is this your energy or is this somebody else's? Do you give yourself permission to let it go and to not take that on? Because not being aware that I was taking it on just happened automatically throughout my life, and having to raise my awareness going, this isn't mine, something else is going on, and being keenly aware of my environment. And sometimes, you could almost think, my God, isn't that exhausting? You're thinking about it all the time. And it's almost, I don't know any other way to be at this point. And it's also, I'd rather do this than just do that by default. So yes, it is work, but it's much more satisfying work versus not understanding and feeling all chaotic in those moments.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the more you do it, the easier it gets. The more you become aware of it, the easier it is to notice the energy on people, whether it's friends, family, strangers, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just blindly rolling through life and collecting this stuff like an energy magnet, and it doesn't matter what you grab, and all of a sudden you realize you're like, I feel like toxic today.
Mm-hmm. And not knowing why.
Yes.
Yeah. But
Yep.
now, because you cultivate these things, you go, okay, well, what's off? Something's off, and let me figure out which one it is. And that does help. But I also think because you know how good you can feel and you don't want to feel any other way other than as good as you can feel, you're not willing to tolerate certain things. And you're just like, goodbye, out of here. And they're much easier to pick out. It's just mostly having that level of alertness that goes, it's like constantly scanning. What's working? Everything working? Everything is still working?
Yep.
Nope. Okay, what is it? Go for it.
And also the understanding that with that power, you're going to have some people that will test you on it on purpose. Because
what? No.
they're so used
possible.
to being able to push your buttons before, and they got kind of addicted to that reaction. And all of a sudden, you're like, oh, I know this knife. Well, I understand you like throwing them, but I don't play that game anymore. And you drop it on the floor and you walk away, and they're like, did you just pull that knife out and drop it on the floor? Okay, what's going on?
And then they're offended. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's shocking. And there are times where you don't even know, especially if you're working on boundaries and you're working on certain things, and you don't realize that things have been getting past you. And then all of a sudden, everything just lights up like a freaking fireworks show or a building on fire, whichever you choose. And you're like, how did I miss this?
Tolerance. You grew up with the programming of tolerance.
Completely.
And expectations. you just expected it out of those people, not realizing that they don't have to be part of your tribe. Even if they're family. And it doesn't mean that you are malicious to them or anything. You just start to put boundaries where you don't have to talk to them. You don't have to interact with them. If you're going to the family reunion knowing they're going to be there, you prep yourself. Just like
armor up.
Yeah, just like the people that have to do asbestos removal. They know you dress up like a spaceman because getting that stuff in your body has been proven not so good, pretty bad. So if you're going to the family reunion and that person that loves to push your buttons and all the above, you get ready for them mentally, physically, and you learn how to clean that energy off when you leave, because it wasn't yours.
I think that's so important to realize.
And even back when they had full access, that was because you didn't know any better. Before we knew what asbestos did, people were working around it like it was cotton candy. Now we know better. Okay, yes, Holly.
I'll just jump in real fast too, just a couple thoughts. First was as we talk about a lot in energy work, anytime you take something out, you need to put something back in again. I think in the Bible, it talks about you clean the house and don't replace it with anything new. And then all of a sudden, a whole bunch more negative spirits come in and inhabit. So I think one of the things that I need to focus on, at least, is when you're around good people and they have excess, they're overflowing with amazing energy, and they're offering to let you be a part of that and have some of that. Saying, you know what, I'm going to accept that gift so that I have something in my cup already, so that I don't have to worry about it getting, because if I don't fill it with that, there's space for other crap to get in there.
Absolutely.
And then one other thing that just kind of went through my mind too is just that thought of a lot of times when we're going through something difficult, it's because we have a lesson we need to learn, or the universe is trying to get our attention to let us know there's an opportunity in our area. And so, like, for instance, right this minute, my power just went out. Obviously, I had to go out, but I didn't know it was cool and a nice cool breeze and it's beautiful out here. And so, maybe the universe is just trying to get, so when you're in that place, just say, what is the universe trying to teach me? Or what is the universe trying to alert me to?
Yes. And it's that awareness out there that all the above, like Lenora pointed out, people that you've been around for so long and had no idea how toxic they were, because you had tolerance and familiarity and all the above. And now for you to be like, yes, when you empty out their energy, make sure that your cup is full of the good stuff. And our beautiful Fran joined us, has her hand up. How you doing, dear?
I'm doing good, thanks. I just wanted to say sort of and agree with Holly that if you have the opportunity to mix with all these wonderful people, it actually gives you a lot of strength to resist the other stuff. And if I'm repeating what somebody else has said, I'm sorry, but I'm a bit in and out at the moment. And, I find in my own life that I'm fortunate enough to mix with a lot of volunteer fire and rescue people, and their energy, I know, absolutely shores me up against meeting difficult people, because I've got this background and this strength behind me, in me, and having that sort of support definitely builds up your resilience. And the other thing that I wanted to raise was the gossip aspect. Now, I hate gossip, but I've actually found that it's a disadvantage not to listen to anything, because you just don't know what's going on. And I have so put my foot in it because I haven't been listening to what's happening. So maybe there's a happy medium there about keeping your finger on the pulse, but not engaging in anything negative. So that's my bit. Thank you.
Well, the thing that I like about I'm probably not going to get it perfectly correct, a story about regarding gossip, and somebody went up to this person and said, "Oh, did you hear about so and so?" He goes, "Well, before you tell me, do you know for sure that it's true?" Well, no. Is what you're about to tell me going to make my life better or help me out or give me an ability to help that person? Well, no. Would this person agree with what you're about to tell me? Probably not. So you're not sure it's true. It's not going to make anybody else's life better. And they wouldn't want you telling me about it.
Then
Okay.
yes, I definitely want to hear it.
What's the dirt? What's the dirt? And I've had to deal with that as well. When you grow up in a village of 187 people, and my grandmother used to write the gossip column for the local newspaper, and she got herself in trouble a couple of times. But she was pretty good at it. She kept it pretty ethical. A lady who took over for her when she couldn't do it anymore got into enough trouble that they canceled it. They stopped doing it. Not enough fact checkers. The actual old school, real time, accurate fact checkers. And so that's another important part with protecting your energy. Gossip is an energy, and it can be a very addictive one. I know, because some people will get bummed out if you won't gossip with them. Well, I can't believe you don't want to know what Mrs. Jones was doing the other night. Well, did you watch it? No, but I heard, I overheard a couple of people talking about somebody, and I just know it was her. Oh, all right, well. So, there you have it. And here we are, top of the hour. And I wish that a bunch of you people that out watching, hi Mom, could join us in the conversation. But now it's time to turn it over. We didn't get to food, life, and beliefs. Seems to be a common theme with Triple T. I'll pick 3 and in 83 episodes. What do you think? We've accomplished all three like a third of the time? Rule of thirds? So this is your hour. This is where you get to bring up topics, questions, all the above. And I take a back seat for a little bit and let other people answer first so that I can learn something. And then I will answer with my 2 cents if applicable. So who's got something for the second hour? Come on, come on. Who's got it? I know you guys like to play the kind squirrel. After you, no, after you. I didn't want to be first. I didn't want to intrude. I didn't want to push.
I wanted to hear some of what Holly had going on at HTL and the other insights she had from the other week. So, what kind of stuff you got for us, Holly?
Oh, geez. I think I prepared a lot of it. With just talking about, something else that I guess I could bring up is I haven't necessarily found the answer, so I'd be curious to know how everybody else would respond to this. But it's the concept that when we're doing hypnosis and we're clearing stuff, 99% of the time we're clearing stuff that we've already solved, problems that we've already found solutions to. It's just the subconscious mind doesn't realize we solved it. But what about that 1% of the time when someone genuinely doesn't have a working strategy and they're still technically in danger? And so they need to come up with a proper strategy to deal with things before they clear it. First of all, how would you know you come across something like that? And then second of all, when you do come across something like that, what would be the strategy for handling it?
All right. Epic question to start us off.
That's a great one.
What do you guys got for Holly?
The one that came up this was the first thought that I came up with, having a resource room. And I don't know, I feel like we probably have heard the resource room a couple of times. I had asked James C2 one time, and he was walking me through a process. So he was doing like kind of the movie theater. You saw yourself on the screen, you were in the theater seats, and then he had me walk into the back room, into the resource room where the recordings were, where all the files were that would help modify the recording or the lessons that I needed. And I found that to be very, very, very helpful. And I remember thinking it looked like, do you remember in Little Mermaid when she's in the cave and she's got all her whatchamacallits? Like there was a ton of stuff, or like even in the movie Inside Out, when they have all those memories in those globes, the room was just covered. And especially when you pair it with what might a solution be, or who might be able to come in to help you resolve that, really helps open that up to possibility for resolve.
Great answer. Who else has got something for Holly? I'll toss my 2 cents in. As Lenora pointed out, when you can bring up some form of resource room, I like to use the concept of a pantry, because we all like to eat, and we all realize that even the quick make food is made out of ingredients. And there may be some ingredient from another lesson, another solution that can be used in this situation. And if you can use imagination and playfulness, along with the word might, and you can even create your own super mind, super solution person that knows you better than anybody else. And if that person could go into your pantry and look through every ingredient that you've ever put in there, every superpower that you've ever put in there, what solution might they come up with? And understand, even the ability to use a spoon is a talent. We weren't born immediately knowing how to use a spoon, and some people have to relearn how to use a spoon after an injury, and yet so many people take it for granted. I'll ask them, how many talents do you have? A few. I think you got a lot of talents. No. Yeah, I think you do. Do you know how to use a spoon? Well, yeah, that's a talent. It is a talent. And it's one that we've had for so long that we took for granted that it's an actual talent. Walking upright is a talent. I wish Kevin was still on the line. Learning different ways to breathe is a talent.
Could I make an addition too, please?
Yes, please, please.
In good times, when I'm feeling okay, I like to create a safety net grid. And I actually draw a grid a bit like, I think you call it tic-tac-toe. Where I come from, it's noughts and crosses type grid, where I'm in the middle and all my resources of people, things, situations, and anything else I can think of that supports me, helps me, is on the outside of the grid. And it covers particular areas of my life, like personal life, work life, play life, and all situations that you might find yourself in. And what are the resources and people that are your resources? Who do you know? Because when stress times hit, you don't remember all your resources. So if they're actually written down, if you actually have a resource list that you can go to when you're stuck, as long as you remember that you have got the resource list, of course, because these things kind of go out of your mind in stress times, then you can actually go through your list and feel through what you've written down, whether that would be helpful to you, whether that would pick you up. So, it's just preparing for the bad times in the good times, when you're thinking clearly, when you're feeling clear. And I've always found that's a really useful thing to do. So that's my little bit. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I've not heard that before. That's a great resource.
I love that you pointed out that you make a safety grid. I think that's fantastic, Fran. And one thing that I wanted to also mention to Holly, especially when you don't have the resources, or when you find, and I don't know if this happens with anybody else, there's times where I quite literally feel a lot of pain inside, and I have to get that pain out, and it has to go somewhere. And in doing that, it doesn't always come across as playful, or it's hard to be playful when I'm that intensely angry. So I will do whatever I need to, and I'll even ask, like, where does this need to go? What does this need to do to get out of my system, to maneuver where it needs to? Because ultimately I need it out of me, and wherever it goes, and back to source, and ultimately that's a good thing. So if you can't be playful, which is perfectly fine, bringing in that trusted advisor, those trusted guardians, whomever it may be, whether it's your higher self or somebody else that you trust for, a great number of period or a great period of time, having them come in at least with that seriousness and that sincerity of, I know you're in pain, let's get this out together, really helps navigate it. And it is definitely trickier to be the driver and the passenger at the same time, but it is possible in certain situations. And the more that you do it, you can get better at it and you can get stronger at it. And certain things, especially for me, where I would feel like it would take almost like an hour to come get this emotional thing down, taking much less time, 10, 15 minutes, and I can get it out and move through it. I am always slightly disheartened that it's not like a permanent, like, hey, you're going to be good from now on and you're never going to have a hiccup again. Still a little bit of a sting, but I'm learning to accept it.
Like taking a shower for
Literally, you know, I do hear that. I do hear that, but still, sometimes you're just like, can't this shower last for like a little bit of time? Like, do I have to?
Elijah.
So the point of what we do with hypnosis, NLP, energy work, whatever you want to use, whichever modality, is not to get to a place where nothing bad will ever happen again. That's not the point of it. The point of it is to build enough experiences and resources within the person that the next time life throws them a curveball and they don't know what to do, they will respond better than they have in the past. Right? So the fact is,
Well said.
you're not a human being. You're a human being, right? There's an ing there, and that means that it's an ongoing process. And, you know, if you were to fix yourself to a point where you never felt anything bad ever again, then, like, there's a quote that says, if I were to slay all my demons, then I would lose all my angels. Right? You can't not feel because you're human, right? And to take away part of the spectrum of what you're able to feel, even if that part of the spectrum is the sadness and those things that are not so pleasant in the moment, you would take away some of the richness of life. And so it becomes more about how will you respond next time, and what have you learned and how have you grown, rather than, oh, you know, like, I'll never feel anything bad again. Right? Yeah.
Well, following on from Lenora, talking about wanting to keep that feeling of wisdom, well, it kind of leads straight into deep trance identification and actually installing these parts of ourself. And though even when they're installed, you've still got to be aware and sort of switch that on at the right time. But this is what one of my wonderful colleagues did for me, that I now do have an incredible resource that has solutions way outside my scope of thinking. And whether you think this is really a part of me or not, it's a different part. It has different ideas, a different perspective, different wisdom to anything that I would have in my normal mental vocabulary. So, you know, sometimes doing a deep trance identification with a being or an energy that you feel is the absolute epitome of a wisdom. I have access to King Solomon and his wisdom in my deep trance identification persona, and it has been unbelievably useful at times of extreme difficulty, giving me a very different perspective than anything I think I could have ever thought.
love
Thank you so
that.
much. I'm going to jump in. I think it's so funny because the other thing I was going to ask is, because one of the things that came up at HypnoThoughts is the importance when you do deep trance identification, really getting to know, the better you know your avatar, the better you'll be able to identify with them and download them. So what strategies do each of you use to really get to know your avatars when you're doing deep trance identification? And great answers, everybody, by the way. Thank you.
I am loving this question. I got nothing, but I'm so here to answer the answers.
What's another way you could ask the question then?
So in the past, I have read books, watched videos, and even biographies and stuff like that of the model. And especially if it's something that was written by them themselves, as I'm reading, I would ask, if I was the author, what would I have to believe in order to write these words? What must be true in my life that had led me to a position where I could put this on paper, using pen on paper or typewriter or whatever. And the same thing, like when I'm watching video, if it's video of the person, then it's just what they call second position shift in NLP, where you imagine yourself floating up out of your body and into theirs, which is pretty much the DTI anyway, but without actually fully committing to the DTI, just to try to understand why they move the way they do, why they respond the way they do, if they respond with a question or if they respond in a stern way or whatever. What is it that would have to be true in their internal environment that would cause them to give a response like that? And get in touch with those things, because those are the connections that you're going to make when you do the DTI. Right? Yeah. I don't know how you would get to know King Solomon, though, but,
He's a really cool guy. Not what you think.
But that I'll take that right back to the theory concept of the pantry, because so many people don't understand the amount of ingredients they have available to them. One of my favorites when I'm doing my class that's in alignment with DTI is to have people step out of the room, walk back into the room, and pretend that they are the person they want to become. And they can't describe what it is, they have to show what it is. And the amount of people that come in completely different is amazing. And I go, you do realize all the ingredients that you thought you were lacking are in there. You're not using them for whatever reason. That's what we have to find out. Why are you not using those ingredients?
And if you practice and pretend long enough, it actually becomes real.
Yeah.
And it comes a point where you suddenly realize that actually this is me now. That's really fun.
Well, I'll give kudos to Seth Breedbart. I overheard him talking to one person. He said, just pretend you can do it until you've done it long enough, and then just quit pretending. I was like, yeah, buddy. just pretend that you are the person that you want to be until you've done it so long that that's who you are. Because in a way, we're just pretending who we are anyway. Yes, Lenora.
Sorry, I had to step away for a quick second. Question for you guys. I like the one about pretending and then stop pretending. That one follows that, or I follow with that one. What about the one, what if it were easier? That one is just like, it's almost like a ball, like bouncing a ball off the wall and it just keeps coming back. It doesn't like actually make it through. What's another way to ask that question? Or what if it were easier? And you're thinking, but it's not. Like, how do you navigate around that one?
If it didn't take you any effort to do it, how would you do it differently? Holly.
The first thing that popped into my head when you said that is different people respond to phrases differently. So you could also ask if somebody's not responding to that, just say, what if it were harder? What would that look like? Now bring it back to what if it were the same, and then do the reverse of that and what happens. Like do that same movement of going from harder to the same, do that movement again. What happens? It may not work, but sometimes people need to go the other direction for it to work out for them.
Okay, so what would it be like if it were harder, or what if it were harder?
Yeah, what if it were harder? What would that look like? And before I go there, I'd say, okay, take a snapshot of where you are now.
Yep.
Now picture, what would it be like if this were harder? And now that you're at that place, what does it feel like to move from that place that is harder back to where you are now? Go back to that snapshot. What did that feel like? How did you get there? And then just for fun, move that distance again. What does it feel like now?
Okay.
Doesn't work for everybody, but some people that works a little bit better.
And I like, well, when you were asking, I'm like, okay, well, I noticed we're in a consistent spot in my body. So this is all in my stomach. So that's a good thing. And I actually wrote in the chat, especially when it comes to effort, the other week I had mentioned that I really was struggling with the word easy. And I much preferred the word easier. I think we're making things easier by doing certain techniques, doing certain tactics, making certain approaches, especially the word effortless. If it's effortless, you're not doing anything and you could be considered lazy, and it can come across as too easy.
Or another thing you could also say is, what if there was a better strategy you could use?
Okay.
A more efficient strategy.
More efficient strategy. Okay.
And since you mentioned your stomach, have you actually run your problem through the wisdom of your stomach? Because your body has actually got a lot of internal wisdom in itself. And each part of your body has a very different perspective on what's bothering you and will give you different answers and different solutions. That can be really interesting and fun to play with. If you just listen to, give the problem to a particular part of your body, and if you feel it in your stomach, give it to your stomach and ask what it thinks about what to do about it. You might be really surprised.
And okay, so keep going with that. So you give the problem to your stomach and you're like, hey, work on this for me.
Just now, just take a little example of a problem. Just feel that problem in your stomach for a moment. Now, just focus in on your stomach and actually in your own mind, ask your stomach, what does it want to do about this? What additional information can it give you about this? How would it like this problem eased? And just feel and listen for something that it says, shows you. It's just finding that quiet space and bouncing or just listening to it. Give it the problem. It'll find a solution. It might not be one that you choose, but it will certainly expand your thinking and enable you to see the problem in a different way. And that in itself is powerful.
Very much so. Thank you, Fran. That was awesome.
Kind of in alignment with three-brain protocol, right? Don't use your head brain to interview your gut or your heart, because it's going to want to make its own interpretation. Step out and interview all three of them independently, and you'll be surprised at the answers that will come up.
I heard what you did there, Fran. That was very cleverly worded. I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but there was it was really good 2-3 suggestions in a row there.
I'll jump in again if sorry, I just a bunch of things coming up. So David had at Hypnothoughts did this really, really good. I've seen him do it before, but he just like nailed it at Hypnothoughts. Where he talks about the difference between stubborn and relentless. And he talks about, relentless is I need to get out of this room, and then he starts patting the wall, walking around until he finds the door. Stubborn is, I'm trying to just keep pushing through the wall until I can get through the wall. So another question to ask yourself is, and it doesn't necessarily have to be easy. Like, the question isn't, is it easy? The question is, can you get over it? Do you have the strategies that are necessary to get over it? But one question you could ask yourself is, am I being stubborn or am I being relentless with my work? And then another question you could ask yourself, and this one will trigger some people, it won't trigger other people, but and you want this to be triggering people, of course, I'll make that clear. But the question is, are you purposely making this harder than it needs to be because you're afraid of what you could accomplish if you were to open up your excess energy and put it towards something else?
And if I may, it kind of runs, there's going to be a fair bit of overlap with what Holly just said. Am I making this more difficult to achieve by wanting it in too specific a way? Or am I open to it happening in a way that's different from the way that I want it to happen? Like, if I reach the end, but on a different path, is that still okay? Or does it have to be on this path with these steps? Because sometimes that rigidity in it has to be a certain way can actually get in the way, rather than being open to allowing the universe, the infinite intelligence, the whatever it is, to reshape around us and make it happen the way it feels is the most conducive way.
I 100% agree with you. And one of the things I'd like to add to that is sometimes the greatest gifts we ever get are unanswered prayers. So what we think we want, what we actually need and need to be and need to go are not in alignment. So we push and push and push to go in a certain direction, and it's not the right direction for us. It's not the path that's laid out for us. So being open to that resistance and being able to flow inside of the path that guides us to where we need to be.
Brilliant.
Amen. I am a very, very traveled spokesperson for don't judge what's happened in the past, because you don't know where it's going to lead you in the future. The path that I had to go through to meet you guys, right, Mom? Woo! And I could say that it started in 88 in college with my decision to do my internship in Yellowstone, where I met a guy that later on got me into the travel club, and that's where I met Dr. David. But the only reason I was in the area to meet Dr. David was I lost everything in Minnesota and ended up in San Diego. So you also have to look at, when you're going through stuff and helping your clients go through stuff, where can you go with this? What can you do with it? Are you surviving? Yeah, but I can't see the trail. Can you see the step in front of you? Yes, we'll take that one. And even with solving our problems, some people have the amazing ability to make their problems much bigger than they have to be. And I'm not saying that as an outside person. I'm saying that as the witness of the people that once they solve their problem, they're like, wow, that was a lot easier than I thought it would be. Because they had worked it up and convinced themselves that the solution had to be hard, or the solution was going to be hard. And you could show them an easy solution, they're like, yeah, that can't work, that's too easy. What's another one? Well, you sure you don't want to try the easy one? No, this problem is way too big. It'll never work with that easy solution. Okay? What's another solution? Well, I don't have any. Okay, then let's try this easy one. Well, fine, but I don't think it's going to work because it's too easy. This problem is way too big. Boom. Wow. Really? That did it? Wow. Huh. Well, I've been building up that problem for 28 years. You mean you fixed it in 5 minutes? Holly.
Wasn't expecting you to call me quite that fast. So another thing that's coming up as I'm listening to everybody else's answers, just a couple things of, are we confusing something? I guess sometimes confuse difficulty with hesitancy, and maybe even a little bit of fear, because we can do it, but we're afraid of our own power and who we can be, because it's not familiar. We don't know what it means. And it also means if we have more power, we have more responsibility. I was just kind of thinking about, when you're a kid, how awesome is it? I don't have to worry about preparing, dinner. I just show up and mom prepared it. To become an adult, you have to be the one to take on the responsibility of taking care of yourself, but you also get more freedom, more understanding, more growth. And getting to that next level means maybe giving up some of that innocence, some of that lack of responsibility. And that can be scary. And so is the reason we don't want to change because we don't have the strategy because it's really hard? Or is the reason we don't want to change because we're comfortable where we're at and we're afraid of who we could be, and it's just easier to just keep being the same person?
Kind of like the difference between being a passenger and a driver and owning a car. It's nice to be the passenger. It's nice to be the driver, but when you have to buy the car, and then you realize you got to maintain it, and then you got to put gas in it, and then you got to pay insurance, and then you got to watch out for other people on the road. But when you want to go somewhere, you go out and you start it up because it's your car, and you can go pretty much where you want to go and turn the radio on the way you want it and have the window up or down if you want it.
Actually, that epitomizes everything about self-development. Some people are just happy being comfortable and not making the effort. And some people are restless souls and need to get out in the world and explore whatever it is. So, yeah, whether we're lazy, well, we're all lazy, but it's what tickles your imagination, I guess.
Yep.
See, I feel part of the problem is that though many people are not happy, they're also not unhappy enough to do something about it.
Yep.
Right? They're kind of in this dreary gray limbo zone where and they only really step into action when, you know, things start to go really south and you know, things are going wrong and now it's like an emergency and I have to fix it. And then they go ahead trying to make these massive decisions, but they're in a bad state because of all the pressure. Whereas when there was no like fire under their butt, if you like, they could have been cultivating good states and making decisions when they're in good states. But now they find themselves making like serious life decisions in some cases from a state of stress and panic and worry, and it's just never going to work out good that way. You know, so I always try to encourage people wherever I can, even in everyday conversations, just to, you know, when someone's feeling really happy or they smile or they laugh or something, I ask them, you know, like what's something really cool you could do today now that you feel this good? What's something really good that you could do that'll help you get what you want now that you're feeling this good? You know what I mean? And just I just try and put it in with everyone who I see laughing, having a good time, smiling. Say, hey, now that you feel real good, what's something else you could do that would help you get closer to the way where you want to be in life? And I just leave them with it. I don't wait for an answer. I just leave them with the question.
Yep.
Right. And hopefully it has some kind of effect, because it really, you know, it makes my work as someone who's a change specialist, it makes my work much harder when, you know, they come at you when they've hit rock bottom and they're like, dude, I'm messed up. I need your help. And I'm like, why didn't you ask me 3 months ago when you knew it was starting to go south? Well, like, I don't say that to them, but, you know, like, I'm thinking that,
Yep.
you know? So I wish for everyone that they don't have to reach a level of unhappiness before they decide to do something about their lack of happiness, if you like, you know?
That leads back into people being reticent, asking for help. And, you know, when things aren't that bad, you think, yeah, I'll get through it. I'll find a solution. And then that's when the downhill slide can start. And when it's
well, there's
harder.
the F word, isn't it, Fran? There's that horrible 4-letter F word. Fine.
Fine.
How you doing? How's things? Oh, I'm fine. Oh, don't worry, I'll be fine. And they're too, I don't know, proud or just too polite or whatever to admit that things are not exactly fine, you know? You just got to be honest with yourself a little bit, and that way you can, because here's the thing, people, something I learned, believe it or not, I actually learned something throughout these years. You must first be willing to see things as they are before you can change them. You got to be really honest about how things are. Otherwise, you won't be able to change it. If you keep lying to yourself, you won't be able to change it. If you try and sugarcoat it, you won't be able to change it. You got to get into the nitty gritty and say, okay, I'm not happy with this part. I'm not happy with that part. That other part's not bad, but it's not great. Could use a little tweaking, and see it for what it really is. And only then can you change
it reminded me of a story about a young city boy goes out to visit grandpa out in the woods. They're sitting out on the porch having a little tea, and the old hound dog is sitting on the edge of the porch, and he's just kind of moaning. Finally, the kid looks at grandpa and he goes, "Grandpa, what's the matter with the dog?" Dog says, "Well, I reckon he's probably sitting on that nail again. Well, why doesn't he move? Well, I reckon it doesn't hurt enough yet. A lot of people will sit there and just whine and moan because the nail doesn't hurt enough yet. Or they'll, like Elijah pointed out, I'm fine. I'm fine. What was it, Muhammad Ali or Bruce Lee? One of them said it's not the mountain that wears us down, it's the rock in our shoe. So we got 19 minis left. What else we got?
Can I do a follow-up really to start everything? It's kind of what everybody has been saying, but just the thought of, I think most people, when an opportunity is in front of us, we spend all our time focusing on the cost of taking that opportunity. And it isn't until the end of our lives that we look back and realize the cost of not taking the opportunity. But anyway, I'll let you.
Yep.
What's the cost of not taking the opportunity?
Yeah. Wondering what it could have been.
Well, can I share my favorite Bruce Lee quote?
Yes.
He said in an interview, he said, you know, sometimes people will ask me, Bruce, are you really that good? And I say to them, you know, probably if I say that, yes, I am that good, then you will say I'm boasting. But if I tell you I'm no good, then you know I'm lying.
Yep. Okay, so we got 18 minis left. Who's got another question topic? Come on, I know you guys got notebooks full of them.
Well, I'll follow up with the question I asked earlier. So when it comes to DTI, how do you, if you're doing something less familiar with the area, that skill, how do you determine who the best avatars are to DTI if it's an area that you don't know very well?
You cut out a little bit. Could you repeat the question, please?
Oh, sorry. I'm just wondering, if you're DTIing people, how do you pick the right avatars to DTI if it's an area that you don't know very well and you don't know who the good people would be to pick as avatars? How do you find them?
I've got an answer, but anybody want to go first?
I mean, I would say it's just as simple as like studying the area and figuring out what and who the major players were throughout history and even contemporary major players. You might not get it entirely right. There might be names missing from your list and stuff. Like, if you ask me personally, I'll tell you that I was trained by 3 of the best hypnotists in the world of all time, right? But it's quite possible that I haven't even met the 3 best hypnotists of all time, you know? So I can only go off what I know and then make improvements further after I learn more. So like what David used to say, GPS can't help you if you stand still. It's better to make a wrong move than to make no move, because then you can at least correct, right? So I would keep it simple. Just, you know, let's say, you know nothing about snowboarding and you want to learn how to snowboard. Then I would suggest just looking up snowboarding championships and figuring out who won a lot of them, and you know what kind of regime they did, how they dealt with cold exposure, or how they dealt with, you know, whatever. But then also, and this is just a major tip for anyone doing anything, figure out who are the people who were the best learners and learn how to learn. efficiently, learn how to learn well, fast, right? People like Jim Quick, you know, phenomenal memory guy, and has lots of little life hacks that will help you retain information and stuff. I would like to learn how he does that before I set on my real DTIs, if you like, because then maybe when I go through them, I might go through them even more efficiently. So there's always, you can always add the learning frame, and I just think it's great to add it on it, pretty much everything. So rather than, oh, I'm going to be a great snowboarder because I'm going to do these DTIs with these successful snowboarders, it's going to be more like, I'm going to learn how people who were successful at snowboarding learned themselves how to do it. Right? Because ultimately, you still want to leave your own individuality and your own ideas and your own creativity to be able to flow, not just become a carbon copy of someone else. So you learn how they learned, and you learn what they learned, but then you still have the capability to express yourself, because you get to add all of your life experiences to those learnings and then color them a different way. Yeah.
Yep.
Another thought, when I really don't know what energy to bring in or what qualities to bring in, I have used a pure energy construct of what are the qualities that would be needed to do whatever, and not even have it in a form of a person or a being, and actually to step into that pure form, energy form. And that has been very successful with some people that don't know what they don't know.
One of the other things that I like to, when we're building avatars, especially for deep trance identification, I simply tell them they can be alive or dead, real or fictitious. You can build your own out of complete imagination and give them all of the qualities that you think that they should have, that you would benefit from. And also remember, when doing DTI, to only accept the best qualities. Don't take on whatever, don't go freeboard at, I want everything in their pantry, and you find out they've got rat poison in there. Ooh. Only the stuff you need, and only the best of. Alive or dead, real or fictitious.
And it needs to be
the magic word in your verbiage is appropriate.
Yes.
Yeah. John Overdurf uses appropriate, but then he also says, and will honor your personality, which I think is also really strong.
It is.
Yeah.
If you want to be a faster runner, you could even DTI with Speedy Gonzalez and take on some of his humor as well.
Arriba, arriba, ándale, ándale, epa, epa, hija.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
You could even write a fictional character and develop them and make them exactly the way you want them to be, and then DTI them. And then you wouldn't even need to study the model, because you are the creator of the character. You should know the model inside out.
There would be no resistance to that.
And that is also part of my wait to date protocol, because I'm having my clients create their avatar of who their king or queen is. And turning it into reality so that they recognize them when they see them. And now I have clients that I'm having them do the exact same thing for a job. What would that include? What would it look like? What would your supervisors be like? Where did they grow up? What are the owners like? Who are they? What and the more you identify with that, the easier it is to find it. And find yourself something that takes advantage of as many of your talents, including potential future talents. Well, if I need to do this, I would, they wouldn't hire me right now because I don't have this degree. Well, when would now be a good time
That's
to start
so
on
irrelevant.
What's that?
Sorry, TJ. I said that's so irrelevant.
I know, but to some people it is.
Well, okay, so okay, I'm not gonna rant about that, but it's really not relevant. You know, if you need a degree for a job and you don't have a degree, what you should do is imagine yourself having the job and then apply. Don't go to university. Trust me.
Yeah,
Lenora had her hand up. No, I want to know. There was a question in there.
There's
Question
always a
about
question.
DTIing.
Yes.
There was a question about DTIing.
There was.
I kind of half heard it.
Did you feel it? Okay, so maybe I don't play with this enough to when are you doing DTI? When are you bringing this in? After you clear something and you're like, who can help me with this and who can make this better or who can transform this into something else? Like, when are you doing this?
All the time.
Whenever you want to acquire a skill.
Yes.
Okay, am I just mislabeling it? Am I already doing it?
Mm-hmm.
You've been doing it since you were born.
Okay, so I'm just not paying attention.
DTI is how kids learn. Kids learn by mimicking their parents.
Mm-hmm.
That's DTI.
And if you choose,
I would have gone with modeling. I wouldn't have gone with DTI.
Yeah, modeling is the same. I mean, it's the same thing.
Yep.
DTI is just a modeling in trance.
To me, DTI seems like more like you're going to transform into this person. Like if you were going to take on certain features.
No, you don't.
I'm getting a lot of mixed yeses and nos here.
Do you know the
what?
Do you know the magic circle?
Do if you want to. Sorry. I do.
Do you know David's magic circle?
Yeah.
That's a DTI.
Okay. I'm not totally sold on what I consider a DTI to what it might actually be. I feel like that's a magic circle of information from other people, not taking on their not taking on their identity, as in I am now a male and this is how I move through the world.
DTI stands for deep trance identification, right? So it's you identifying the parts within you that. So it's you getting parts within yourself to identify with the equivalent parts of the other person so that your parts can learn from their parts.
Okay.
This is so exciting because there's so many different takes on this. And, for me, to me, it's like cherry picking what I want of somebody else's personality or how they behave, what I want, and I put it in me and it becomes me. And I've had really, really powerful experiences with this to the point of totally changing my character by choice. And I'm leading
You
a
said
better
this a
life
couple of months ago,
because of that.
or a number of months ago now. Yeah,
There's more than one
I've
way
also
to do
had
it.
DTI go horribly wrong.
I remember Elijah
Oh.
saying that too.
Yeah. I've also I did DTI once with a murderer, but not for the murderous content, but for
Okay.
some of the other highly intelligent, forward thinking, always 2 steps ahead part of his personality.
Okay.
And he was a fictional character. He's not a real life murderer. He was from a story. And I didn't get any kind of murderous rage or anything, but there was intense levels of hidden suffering and hidden pain.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say guilt, but a wondering of will it end up the way it was supposed to when I started on this path? Or is it possible that I killed them for no reason? Right.
So
and that sent me into, I don't know if you guys probably do know, Holly, I used to do classes every single week on a Sunday, and then I disappeared for a year and a half because it's partly because of a bad DTI. Partly because of a bad DTI. I was a little bit lacking in my specifics of what I wanted.
Yep.
Right. So DTI is something you got to be careful with, not just in choosing the avatar, but in setting up the filters. The filters are so important. They're so important, right? Yep. And as much as I did think that I had the filters in place, they probably weren't specific enough, given the dangerousness of the character. They probably should have been even more specific.
And be willing to reach out to one of us professionals to be able to reset back to the earlier version.
That's something I recommend now to anyone who's interested in DTI, is to create almost, you know how you can create a save point in Windows or something, like the last working version of my desktop before it caught its virus and went wrong. You can kind of create like a restore point and a reset. Yep. And then you could, like, when things go wrong, you could literally just go into trance and reboot yourself and undo everything that you've done and go back to the last point that worked. And I recommend
when
that.
Things go wrong.
I recommend having that. I first learned to install that when we first did Timeline, because Timeline made me very uncomfortable. Right. So when we were with David, and so I'm a through time, in time. When's the one which is the one that pierces through your body?
That's in time.
Through time.
Yeah, through time.
Through time.
I get
so I'm a through time person, and they were gonna move my timeline so I'd be an in time person, and it made me very uncomfortable. And then they undid it and put it back the way it was, and from that day onwards, I've been creating restore points. Anytime I want to try something in trance, I kind of make a quick save. I have a quick save and a quick load. It's all learned from video gaming, right? I've created hard saves, hard loads, hard resets, quick saves, and quick loads, and I can do them all pretty quickly now. But they're really, really helpful to have these kind of restore points.
I think
I'm the one that had it backwards, by the way.
I think that brings focus on, very carefully selecting what you want and thinking more around the possibilities. Having a reset point is a great idea, and giving it a test drive, because yes, you don't have to accept that. And like TJ was saying, also being very aware that you don't have to take the whole character, that there are certain points of the character or the energy that you want, and just make sure that you take those. Another thing I've noticed is that if I take too many dissimilar characteristics, that the water's kind of muddy, and you like mixing paints, that if you mix too many dissimilar things, you just get a sort of just the same as if you're painting with red and green and purple, and if you mix them all together, you get a sort of muddy color. So taking maybe a little bit at a time and just trying that on and going for a test drive in that, does it feel good, and maybe spending more time rather than total immersion into a character. I know that I've found the changes that I've done, most of them have been absolutely amazing, life-changing in a really good way. But I also acknowledge that, yes, having a reset point may be a good plan, especially if you're being very experimental.
Well, and we're unfortunately out of time, but this would be a perfect segue into future pacing, where you get to go into the future and try it out and go, not a good fit. Or you go in and you go, that was pretty cool, but I would like to add some of this or some of that. And then spending a few more sessions in future pacing so that you become very familiar with the new creation that you are becoming, which allows you to walk into it even easier. But that's another topic for another time. Thanks for tuning in, which means, unfortunately, I have to say, just like when I was bartending, it's time for us to go. But I want to first, as always, acknowledge and thank you for investing your precious commodity, your time, which I cannot give back to you, to provide your insights, your inputs, and all of the things that you do to make this platform what it is. Every week I'm in awe and humbled by you guys showing up and sharing your time and your input and your wisdom, not only with those of us on the call, but those of you that are watching live, and those of you that are watching the recording. Thank you. Truly mean that. So until next week for number 84, guys, take care. Go out in the world, make it a better place, and be nice to people.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, TJ. Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everybody. See you next
Thanks,
week.
TJ.
Thanks.